Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We are delighted to have you with us. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Manjula R. She earned her PhD from IIT Kharagpur in 2018 and currently serves as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at SRM University, Amravati. Dr. Manjula holds a bachelor degree in ECE and master degree in Computer Network Engineering from Vishveshwaraya Technological University. With over 17 years of academic experience, she has made significant contribution to research in wireless sensor networks. Her work primarily focuses on developing privacy preservation protocols and innovating MAC and network layer protocols for in vivo non-sensor networks. Today, Dr. Manjula will be discussing in vivo communication through terahertz technology, challenges and innovation, a cutting-edge topic that addresses some of the most pressing challenges in the field. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Manjula R. Welcome, Dr. Manjula.
Thank you, Dr. Alekia, for
I am
this warm
handing
welcome.
this session. I'm handing this session over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Alekia. Am I audible?
You're audible.
Yes. Thank you for that warm welcome. Let me begin. I apologize to the audience. I have issued the camera, so I think I'll just proceed with my voice. So my research topic, as Dr. Alekia was quoting, right now I'm focusing on in vivo communications through terahertz technology. And in vivo here indicates inside the body. Yes, you have heard it right. The communication that is happening inside the body, and from the body you're trying to retrieve that signals out. But let me make a statement that this is just the beginning. Our research team is trying to explore this domain. Right. And also in this study, we will be discussing about what are the various challenges and innovations that we face when we use this terahertz technologies. So this would be the flow of my entire talk here. You would usually see the introduction in the beginning, but you will see that the introduction is placed in the fourth point. So I'll just begin with the general motivation about how exactly I started this research. Okay, from there I'll slowly slip into the what exactly I want from this research and how am I going to achieve. And then introduction, challenges, and then we'll go to the work and conclusion. So this would be a short talk as of now. Now, if anybody is interested to begin in this research, these are some of the important key research articles that one can begin with. So you can see that this work has started from 2010 onwards. It's been almost a 1.5 decade ago. But still these devices or what I'm going to talk are not the reality. It's a theoretical work. So as I said, the motivation for me, yes, in 2011, when I was aiming for PhD, just I knew that I have to do PhD so that I can do further research in my lifetime. So I completed my PhD in 2018. Then the thought came to my mind, okay, you got a degree, Manjula, but what next? It's basically, I want to contribute something to the society in the field which I was fascinated right from my childhood, that is a biology. And I was in a position to search for like how I can use the knowledge of my electronics background with the computer networking specialization and to the medical field. All right. So then I started this domain called as nanosensor networks. But within nanosensor network, I was just trying to find out which part of the body I have to focus on. Should I focus on stomach, or should I focus on the kidney, or should I focus on the intestine or on the brain? Like how you see that now Elon Musk and his team are working on Neuralinks. No, ultimately I said, let me go ahead with heart. Yes, but there are some reasons which are personal why I went into this heart, but it's still good and interesting. So that's how it started. So why only heart? If you have this question, probably your mother might be very curious to know the heartbeat of you when you were as a child and as a baby, still in the womb. Maybe your father wants to listen to your heartbeat. And then your doctor also wants to know the heartbeat rate or the health status. Now you may say, ma'am, nowadays we have technologies where we can remotely monitor these signals. But yes, I want something more. So what is that I was expecting from this research? Can I get the finer details of my heart health status? It could be either that, or maybe people who are suffering from cardiac diseases or who have already undergone bypass surgeries, or maybe they are having the stents and all those things, or maybe a pacemaker. So this kind of research is more applicable to that kind of patients and applications. So then I started working on this. So how do I achieve this? How do I now get the finer details of my heart even before it is critical? The heart, you enter into critical stage, not late stages. We want to have the early information. Now, early information means what? At the very beginning and at the nanoscale. So when we start with nanoscale, it's the molecular level. I want to get the information of each and every cell that is present in my body. So that's how we focused on this in vivo nano networks. So if you want to know what is in vivo nano communications, first let me show you then architecture. Yes, this is the architecture which we are thinking of. So we have here, let me come from the left side to right side. You are already aware of doctors are using these latest tools where they use personal digital assistants or through computers, anything to do the analysis part, or maybe they're trying to get the updates. And in the back end, the cloud is supporting you. And here near the patients, we have an IoT device which is connected to the cloud. And from this IoT gateway, it goes to a nano macro interface. So from this is the point where it is, you're getting the signals will be connected to the external world and to the internal world. So within this internal world here, you can see that these tiny circles inside the heart, they represent nanosensor nodes. And you might be wondering, what is a nanosensor? What's the size? Just I will let you know. The size of these sensors are almost smaller than sometimes or equal to the size of your RBCs, WBCs. Okay, that would be the size of these sensors. So these are deployed inside the heart to collect the heart status information, and then they send it to a device which is implanted underneath your skin. And from there, it will be sent to the external device. So right now we are focusing on the network which is there here in this case. And hence the name nano, because nano networks are used, we use nano communication, and in vivo is for the communication which is happening inside the body. So this is the main, this entire thing forms the nano network. So then let me take you to the introduction. As I said, having this picture. So initially, like for example, 20 years ago, maybe more than that, somebody made a statement that you in future, you will have computers which are smaller than the postage stamps. Okay, this statement was almost made when we had computers of this size. And you might be worrying, where is the computer? This entire room is a computer. There's a monitor, there's a keyboard, and these are all the other like CPU kind of thing. So from room size, we moved. Today we are having this CPU which can be held in your hand. From there, already you know them. We are using in our smartwatches, right? So never stop. Research never stops. So what next? Already we have smartwatches also. Then what next? It's the nano. Now, if you're still wondering why we should focus on nano communication, why are we worried about putting some devices into our body? I'll just show you a scenario, a video, which I have borrowed it from internet to make you understand. But before that, let me get the confirmation regarding these audio. If not, I will just enable that feature. I don't think so there's an audio, just you can watch it. Yeah, okay, there's an audio. Is my audio audible to you?
No, ma'am, your video is not having any.
Yeah, just a minute. Here, I have to share my screen along with. Sorry, apologize for this. At the beginning itself, I should have enabled. Stop the screen share. Yeah, share with this.
Cancer rates have been steadily increasing, making it the leading cause of death in the Western world. Cancer treatment is costly both to individuals and to healthcare funds. Surprisingly, despite scientific and medical advances, more than 30% of cancer patients receive the wrong drug. drugs that are ineffective in fighting cancer weaken the patient and may not bring the best results. However, this can change. Chemical engineering professor Avi Schroeder and his team at Technion Israel Institute of Technology developed a unique nanotechnology method to explore the efficiency of different drugs before treatment begins. To test a person's response to medication, drugs need to be tested within the patient's body inside the tumor, turning it into a small and safe treatment lab. Schroeder creates nanoparticles, each marked by a unique barcode that carries a specific medication. These nanoparticles are then injected into the blood and enter the malignant tissue, penetrating through microfissures that do not exist in healthy tissue. The nanoparticles then discharge the drug within the tumor cells. Following that, doctors take a biopsy of the tumor and can see by analyzing the barcodes which drug is most effective for treating the patient. This new development allows the drug diagnostic stage to take place within the patient's own body. This leads to clinical recommendations based on the patient's own response, being personalized medicine at its best. Such speedy answers will lead to a dramatic improvement in treating these prevalent cancers, saving countless lives, one nanoparticle at a time.
Yeah, that's the story there. You can see that the nanoparticles, there it was in terms of chemicals, okay, and these are injected through the body. So the nano devices which we are discussing is also of a similar kind, where you can inject them through these syringes, or you can implant them, or minimally invasive surgeries can be done to put them inside our body. And now, this is how a nano network inside our body looks like. You can see here these people, there's a research team which have taken people who are working in similar domain, and these are the research articles from where these images are picked up. And you would see that this is a nano machine which is placed at this in this point here inside the human body. Okay, and these people have worked on if these could be circulating within the blood through the entire body, and then they are going to come up with or speak about localization aspects and all. And here you would see that the blood is flowing through these arteries and veins, and then finally the blood vessels, you can call it as, and there's a wristwatch, your smartwatch, trying to collect this information when the nanocells are exchanged, and from here it is going to the gateway. And in between this enlarged portion, you can see that these are the red blood cells, and here black color dots or with this Wi-Fi kind of symbols, they indicate the nanobots. So this is a zoomed version of this particular dot here. So having given an information and overview of this nano network, now you might be wondering how much is a nano size. Those who have already visualized it's excellent. Otherwise, you can just check here. Ant is 5 mm, as well as dust mite, they call it as, which is not visible to us. Dust mite is 200 micrometer. Our human hair is 60 to 120 micrometer wide. RBCs, which we are talking, it's still about 7 to 8 micrometer. And then if you go to the further smallest one is, Armstrong unit is used for atoms. So our nano devices are fitting somewhere in this band. This would be the actual size of the nano devices. So now you can imagine how much is that nano. Now, question comes, people would be wondering, what are the different types of nano networks that we have, and what is the approach that people are following in the current research domain? So you can see that there are basically 3 types: molecular communication, electromagnetic nano networks, and hybrid communication. In molecular communication, it's purely about related to biology, where biological equipments, I call it as like being a technical like engineering perspective, you can call it as like bacteria, for example, E. coli. People are trying to program them and then inject those E. coli bacteria into the body to achieve the necessary task. What might be the task? They help us in carrying the drugs to a particular point, to a cell inside our body, and release the drug into the body. And then the drug is going to have an effect. Otherwise, there are also other approaches. Chemicals are also used where the people try to use, for example, DNA. DNA is also used as a message exchanger. So now I'm not going to focus much about this molecular because my research work and our research team works in electromagnetic nano networks. So coming to this, as in this diagram, you can see that there are two approaches. Either you have a top-down approach from left to right or bottom-up approach from a right to left. On the right-hand side here, you will see that we have biological, as I was talking, molecular network. And for electromagnetic, people who are having a little bit knowledge from EC and all, they know about MEMS for electromechanical systems. And now we have nano, this is micro, and this is nano electromechanical systems. And then we have tiny devices such as nano translators, nano memories, nano graphene based ribbons. Okay, these gold particles at very atomic and molecular level. From that, we create nano transistors and nano memories. And from there, it goes, you come up with a nano sensor. And then we have micro sensors. So this is dealt. This is about the people who are really working about the manufacturing part. But however, right now we said we are into theoretical and we are focusing on a different aspect. I will let you know shortly. So what is our focus now? Electromagnetic nano networks. And what is the band of frequency that we are focusing right now? Initial preliminary, we have worked on terahertz band, 0.1 to 10 terahertz, till we are continuing. We also work with optical band and NIR band with 400 to 750 terahertz optical band and 600 hertz to 900 terahertz NIR band. But in this work, I'll be talking only about what we have done in the terahertz band so far. The various researches that are possible related to nano networks are, first is the material device. You need to have a device, right, and test beds to check whether your nano communication is feasible or possible or not. And then when we talk about the communication, we primarily start with the physical link and the designing the protocols at this physical link. Then we have signal processing elements. Then forms the networking. We also have MAC layer protocols below this. And finally, the application. So right now, our team is focusing on materials. It is not basically the materials. It is the second item here, the devices, precisely, where we talk about the nano antennas. And in the physical layer, we are talking about the channel modeling. Now, this is an hypothetical image or a demo of a nanosensor network. As you can see, the dimensions as of now, overall size of this dimension of this nanosensor device, it's given as 6 micrometer, 2 micrometer to 1 micrometer. And these are all the bristles kind of thing, which are again made up of nanoparticles. Just you try to push them with slight mild push is given to that. They bend, and that bend is mechanical energy is converted into electrical energy, and that is helping in generating or harvesting the energy part. And then we have other devices within this entire area of 2 micrometer by 1 micrometer. We have a nano processor, nano antenna. This is nano electromagnetic transceiver. And this is the actuator in the sense, see, as the name suggests, sensor means we think that what's the purpose of this sensor if they are inside the human body. So we can tell that these are used to detect, for example, if I'm telling the heart, to detect very minute changes in the blood pressure, the heart rate, and maybe some of the ailments. So for example, heart suddenly becomes thickened. When the person is having some serious issues or health issues. So how much is the thickness? So it can also be used in detecting the plaque, amount of plaque that is deposited within the artery once the person has been diagnosed with or treated with this heart by placing a stent. But what about this nano actuator? The job of this nano actuator is, for example, the sensor which is present here, they detect the parameters, and then you want to provide the medicine solution to that, activate. So these nano actuator are helping it to release that. In general terms, I will give it to you. People who are working with IoT in agricultural fields, we know that you use water sensor, pressure sensor, all these things, moisture sensors embedded in the field, and then you are trying to get the temperature, humidity, and the dryness of the soil on your monitor sitting remotely at home. Once you realize that the plants require water, then you give a command to that motor so that the motor will turn on and water is given to the field. So the job of that motor in this agricultural scenario is what is done by the actuator. And here the nano actuator means the size of the component is in nano dimensions. So putting all together, we may end up with microcubic meter devices, but each component is of dimensions nano in size. Yes, now this is another image which is taken from internet sources. As you can see that this is a blood vessel where blood is flowing through this tube, and these are the red blood cells, and these yellow color ones, what you see is as the spherical dots, these are the actual nanosensors. And of course, again, there's a question here, how to place these nano routers on the inner wall of this blood vessel. Okay, so now the question comes, one solution which I was thinking is maybe if you're using a stent, on that stent we can try to place them instead of putting them here, right? So this would be the dimension of nanosensor. And what is our work? So as we said, we are trying to focus on trying to get the finer details of the heart. Now, initially, we will just tell you the exact research, what has happened and what is happening still now, and what are the challenges and limitations that we are facing. So that would be discussed here. Now, initially, if you take this as the heart, this one shows you the cross section of the heart, right? And the portion of this one is taken in the form of a cube and it is expanded here. Just like you purchase a watermelon, you ask for him to see whether the watermelon is good or not bad inside. So the person will cut into the three-dimensional structure of the watermelon and get a cube out of that, and you just taste it. In the same way, this portion is removed here, but not for testing purpose. And you will see that the heart is consisting of 3 layers. The innermost layer is called as the endocardium. Middle layer is known as a myocardium, and the outer layer is known as the epicardium. But still, there is one more layer, you can see a blue color, that is known as the pericardium. So initial work, we have focused on only these 3 layers. And then you can see that each layer thickness is mentioned here. You can see the thickness is 0.5 micrometer, 1.5 centimeters, and 5.6 mm. And the tissues which are present inside these are connective tissue, heart muscle, and the fat tissue. So this slowly I'm taking into my research, and we are telling what exactly we are focusing. Now, given the scenario here, okay, our job is to understand if a sensor, I'll get back to that, if a sensor is placed here, nano sensor, if there's a receiving device at this end, I want to send a signal across this cross section and find out how much loss is incurred. That is the only application that we are focusing right now. Means I want to know how much signal is lost. Now, in order to know this, okay, it's not that easier. First, let me give you some details about what are the challenges that we are facing, and generally people also face while exploring this terahertz band. And also, do we have any solutions? Yes, there are several innovations that are already happening. So quickly, I will run through this. As we said, now these are designed to operate inside the living organisms, right? Having said that, why am I using this sensor? I would like to get the physiological conditions. I want to use them for diagnosing diseases. We want to use them for drug delivering, as a drug delivering devices, and relay the information about every cell of your body to the outside world. So this is the reason why we are deploying them inside the human body. However, there are several challenges that need to be countered if you want to make them feasible. So what are those? First is biocompatibility and toxicity. When we talk about nanosensor nodes, it's basically we think about it is made up of some material, maybe silicon or something. And if I use this inside a body, will our body, how will it react? Yes, there would be challenges for this. People are coming up with new type of materials known as metamaterials and all, which are biocompatible, and they are friendly to the human body once they are taken inside. Then energy. So as you had seen that, from where do we get energy? Where do we, in the sense, these sensors, how do they get energy? Once they're injected inside the body, are we going to remove them and again replace them with that? No. Basically, we provide energy harvesting and power management techniques. So that if you say that it is deployed in my heart, the heart is continuously beating. So the movement of the blood and the movement of the heart, that movement itself can be utilized to generate the power and store it in the batteries. Then communication and data transmission. This is where we are focusing now. So the signal is highly attenuated when it is transmitted through a medium, because biological tissues they act as obstacles. They absorb most of the energy. And as a result, you will have less amount of power that is receiving. So this is one challenge that we need to look into. Localization and targeting. Now, for example, when you're injecting these devices into the body, how do we know if they're floating, circulating in the blood continuously? So I want to know a particular sensor is present in which location of our body, so that I will come to know, okay, right now it is in this position. Now I can get the information from the device, or maybe I'm going to actuate it when it is near to the destination. Hence, localization and tracking are important. Data security and privacy, of course, people might already be thinking, what about privacy issues? How safety are these if these are injected into the body? People might start playing around. People might send unwanted signals. They may use-group the data and create a danger for us. Yes, these threats are existing, are prevailing for any type of networks, and nano networks are not an exemption. The next thing is regulatory and ethical concerns. Of course, for these to be commercialized or come into the market, a long process has to be taken care, and where we need ethical, first initially medical trials and then the ethical clearances. Given these challenges, it doesn't stop us to do the research further, as even I'm facing right now, and me and my team. We do have advances in nanomaterials are happening. People are now coming up with nanomaterials, or smart materials are known as metamaterials. Then energy harvesting technique, as I showed you in the earlier diagram, energy can be harvested from those bristles and stored in these devices. A molecular communication system, some people can use a hybrid approach, the third one, where people are trying to use a combination of molecular as well as the hybrid is another approach. Nano localization techniques, the diagram which I showed you where entire human body was shown with the circulatory system. That paper is the one where people have focused on nano localization techniques. And then AI, and particularly the machine learning part. This is where we are also trying to explore how machine learning can help us in some of the challenges that we are facing. Then finally, you can come up with wearable integrated devices which are put on your body and that can talk to the nano sensor or nano devices which are inside the human body. Then they are also used for drug delivery systems. People have already started building up such things, and these are not a sci-fi at present. In the end, there's one slide I will show you where MIT is already trying to has already come up with such a nano device. Application is different. And bioinformatics and data compression are the other few more techniques which we can use to solve some of these challenges. Now, this is the main essence of our work. Initially, we started with the channel modeling. What do you mean by channel modeling? For example, you have a sender. On the left-hand side, you see a sender. On the right-hand side is a receiver. As I showed you in the heart diagram, one sensor is it is fixed to the inner wall of the heart, and this is a receiver which is fixed on the outer side of the heart wall. And the signal is sent. This is the original signal, which is sent at the sender side. By the time it comes to the receiver, you see that its strength has reduced. Now the reason question comes, how did the signal reduce its strength? Because in between we have three layers of the heart, which are biological in nature. The dielectric properties are playing high influence on this. And some of the energy is absorbed by your body and the rest is reaching. So we are trying to understand how much loss is happening when the signal of certain input is given at the sender and it is traveling all the three layers and reaching the receiver. So that is a basic objective of this. And my this entire talk is primarily aimed at those researchers who want to just begin with this. And especially to SRM EP students, we are trying to focus on undergrad students also, as well as PG students, so that giving them the finer details will help us to get more students, scholars who are interested in this type of research. Now, basically, there are three types of losses that the signal undergoes. Like, for example, I said why there is a reduction in the strength. technical term is attenuated. So there are three types of losses basically. One is the spreading loss, the other one is the absorption loss, the third one is the scattering. Since scattering losses are negligible in the terahertz band, based on the existing theory, we have restricted our research in the current version to spreading loss and absorption loss. You will see that the spreading loss is a function of distance, where distance is the distance between the sender and the receiver. And then the wavelength at which the signal is operating, it's not the free space wavelength, it is a wavelength inside the media. And then it is where it is also dependent on the refractive index of the medium. Coming to the absorption loss depends on the absorption coefficient or extinction coefficient, which in turn depends upon the conductivity of the dielectric medium. And then we try to estimate the absorption due to path loss due to absorption. Sorry. Collectively, if I combine, what would be the total path loss that we experience when we travel from inside endocardium up to the pericardium is what presented in these graphs. So you can see that from these graphs, the distance is just in mm. Please note that this is still an simulation based. We have not given the actual thicknesses, assuming that each layer, this test is done for each layer separately. Now what happens as the thickness increases, we can see that the losses are also very high. Now coming to all the three layers, we will see that the myocardium is having the highest loss, for which frequency for 0.1 terahertz. When we go to the upper end of the frequency band, because we know the terahertz band is between 0.1 terahertz to 10 terahertz. So we're also trying to check. In this case also, epicardium has the least loss compared to myo and epi. However, if you look at the magnitude scales here, for lower frequencies, the losses are just 350. For higher frequencies, it is almost 1000 dB. So this indicates that we should start working on lower frequency. The conclusion that we trying to get from this analysis is better to stay at lower frequencies. Okay, that's fine. Then what happens if I keep the frequency fixed? Keep the distance fixed, that is thickness fixed, and try to vary the frequency. So in this case also, it shows that for 1 mm thickness on the right hand side, we have 1 centimeter thickness. As the frequency increases, that loss also increases. This is as inferred from the previous diagram. But however, in both the cases, myocardium is having the higher loss. But as you can see here, for smaller thicknesses, smaller distance between the sender and the receiver, the losses are less. As the thickness increases, the losses are very high. Now you can see that just 1 centimeter thickness itself, the loss are very high, which are might be not acceptable. So these are the challenges that we have to address, our team. We are just giving the preliminary results in case if we use this kind of networks, what would happen. And similarly, we have another set of results for optical band. I'll just quickly run through this. In this case, you see that there's a strange thing happening. For the lower frequency band, when I keep varying the thickness, you will see that the endocardium and myocardium have almost same losses, whereas epicardium has lesser loss compared to these two. Whereas in this case, for 400 terahertz only, but as path loss variation and distance. Yeah, I think there should be some issue with this. There should be notation change here. Sorry for that. As we can see that in this case, myocardium has the highest loss, whereas endocardium and epicardium have has a lower value. So this is another inference that we have found out that even in this optical band also, for smaller distances, we have lesser losses. And this is for other version, that is for upper band. Now you can see that comparatively from here, let us focus on this. We are around near to 1500 dB, the loss, whereas in this it is 1600. So here also it says that losses are a little bit higher. Then we have to do is we have to decide what is the best choice, optimal band for operating these devices. Same thing with respect to distance here, but in the optical band. As you can see that in this case, there's a strange behavior. Myocardium has a highest peak compared to endocardium and epicardium. Whereas if you work with the lower frequency, only epicardium has a lower loss, whereas myo and endo both are having higher losses. Still, we are unable to figure out what might be the reason for this. That would be our next future work. So overall conclusion of this first preliminary work investigation is we have tried to analyze the path losses that occur in the human layer, considering these three layers separately. They are not considered as a cascaded layer or continuous model. We are testing them as a separate models. And we see that for most of the cases, myocardium has the highest losses and lower frequencies are preferred over the higher frequencies, and shorter distances are preferred over the larger distances. However, the future work, what we are trying to do from this is we need to test for when the three layers are combined together. So that's the next work. This is the future work what I was telling. As you can see that there are three layers, and we have come up with this model where you can see that the sensor is placed inside. This is the another nanocontroller. The signal has to pass through these three layers and then reach this nanosensor. So that is what we are trying to work. And this is another picture just to show you that currently the state of the art is people are trying to use leadless pacemakers. These C1, C2, C3 are the leadless pacemakers which are inserted inside the patient. And these pacemakers are trying to collect the signals and pass that information to an interface device which is embedded implanted in your body, and from there this is going to send the information to the outside world. So our job is now to play with these pacemakers and try to see if our application, the nanosensor, can get better information to these devices, and then from here that information can be delivered to that. But this is another application where these devices are working in gigahertz frequency, not in terahertz. So this is the mathematical model that we have come up with, where we are trying to apply the fundamentals of electromagnetic engineering, where you will see that some people, like it's also from your fundamental physics, where we have trying to study the effect of refraction through multiple layers. So these three layers are model, and then we come up. And I cannot talk much about this one. Still, the work is under. It's almost completed. We are at the verge of trying to understand the best fit for this optimized results. Then next, this is okay, fine. What next? Can we predict the channel losses using machine learning? Just we were trying to apply, motivate our CSE students. How can we use this machine learning technologies in this case? So I came up with an idea. Can I predict those losses, which we have done using numerically? Taking the data, can I predict this using? Yes. Sometimes what happens, the initial problem that I face, the challenge is the dielectric properties for the biological tissues are not available in the terahertz band, which are experimentally carried out. So what people have done in this current scenario, they have extrapolated using some mathematical models, and that data is what we are using in our research. So what made me to think is, can we use that data which is already given up to 100 gigahertz? Can we extrapolate them to terahertz band and then check? But validation is not at that. We are able to successfully reproduce that result using machine learning techniques. Yes, but you may ask why machine learning techniques? What thought came to my mind is people say machine learning can predict. Predict means now in order to carry out these experiments for terahertz band and get the dielectric properties, a thought came to my mind. To begin with, I need to use machine learning, and can I get the data which is not there, which is not seen through experimentally? So that entire idea has come up, and then we started working in this machine learning domain. Another aspect which we have to focus is about, as I said, on the device side also we are working. Basically, this is the core research which my scholar, PhD scholar, Mr. Bhagavati Sharan is focusing on. His expertise in the little bit of antenna part, where he has come up with an antenna design As you can see, but this is not for an nanoscale. I cannot call it as nanoscale because the dimensions are still in micrometer, and hence we call it as a microstrip patch antenna. It works in the two band dual frequency bands. Okay, and you may be just given once again this picture here to say the dynamic. Pic shows that it is too large. But if you focus on the dimensions, you'll come to this a micrometer, and still that where is that micrometer? The micrometer is staying here. That is bacteria. It's the size of the bacteria. That is the size of the antenna. Just a comparison. Okay, and just what this antenna can do for us is it can operate in two frequency bands. These are the points that are shown here. What are those two frequency bands? 1.006 terahertz and 1.179 terahertz. And you know that for terahertz, it starts with 0.1 terahertz to 10 terahertz. So we are focusing around 1 terahertz. And this has a return loss of 25.66 dB and minus 26.06 dB. It can provide us a bandwidth of 19.84 hertz and 25.78 hertz of bandwidth, and with an VSWR of 1.10. And this has been already published in a patent, but we are waiting for the grant approval, final approval. So what would be our next attempt? Spreading loss, absorption loss, total path loss, everything is done. But right now we want to test them using machine learning. As I said, I was explaining you. In the literature, information is provided only up to 100 gigahertz. But we want, starting from here, that is from 100 gigahertz, 0.1 terahertz. From here, we wanted to explore up to 10 terahertz. The data is, whatever data is available, it is extrapolated data using a Colcol model. But then we are trying to check, can we get this using machine learning models? Yes, we got, but then we still have to validate this using real experiments. So this is a short research from my team, what we are trying to focus. There are a couple of slides. So before I go to the couple of other rest of the slides, I would like to acknowledge wholeheartedly our SRM research team for funding me with this research. And because of this, we are able to progress using a COMSOL. It's a simulation tool where definitely our research work will get more weightage. We can see our research in a good journals or transactions because we are trying to implement in that. So I wholeheartedly thank the research team of SRM AP. And I was telling you, these things are not imaginary. As we said, we are just the beginners. My team is still the beginner. People around the world, you can see that this article is published in 2022 itself. Cell rover, as the name indicates, the rover is a tiny robot, nano robot you can call it as, where it is residing, where it is moving inside the cell. It's a biological cell and not any other cell. A miniaturized magnetorestrictive, but they are not focusing on terahertz. They are focusing on some magnetism based concept, and these are used for wireless operation inside the living cell. So when that is possible, we are believing the type of nanosensor which we are envisioning would be there in near future. It may take 5 years, 10 years, we are not sure, but still we have started with the theory. We do have several challenges, of course. And these are some of the research works that have come up so far, all are into like international conferences as well as book chapters. And these are some of the important references that we have used. There are more. I have given only key research articles. So what we have done so far. The first one which I was explaining you about, the plots which I have shown you is already come up in an conference. And these are the team. These are the students who are already graduated now. He's Dr. Anirban, my colleague. And we have published this and presented this in an international conference that is also coming up as a book chapter. It was presented recently in last December. And now, next we also have this. As I said, this is an extension. Instead of testing for each layer, I cannot test each layer. We need to think about the combined layers. So this work, preliminary work, is also being presented in an international conference. And these are the students which were involved in this. It is not only an inter-conference, but also our team has got a silver medal for this research work, which was presented in a research team. And there's one more parallelly. This is the team where they started. Trust me, this is a summer internship work. These students have completed their summer internship, and this is my first research work where we try to experiment can we use machine learning models to predict the losses. And you can see that one of these out of three models, gradient boosting is performing well. The wider thick lines indicate maybe like experimental, and the thinner lines indicate machine learning predicted models. And this has also come up on, he is our colleague, Dr. Ashu. And this is also being presented in an international conference. And finally, that extrapolation part, which I was trying to tell you people, and also we're trying to explore the scattering losses. There's another set of team who have worked for their URP project. Their work is presented in Research Day, and also this has been published in a book chapter. And this is another team who is still continuing their URP project. They are right now into final year student. Their work is also appeared in a book chapter. And this team has won a special mention certificate during the last research day. And finally, this is the team with which I am working, Dr. Anirban from AC department. She's Dr. Sabita Lankam, my friend in IIT Kharagpur, but now she's a freelancer researcher. And Dr. Divya Chaturvedi, you know her, but right now she is in IIT Pune, Dr. Ashu. For machine learning, and Dr. Sibendu Samantha, we are trying to explore how we can do molecular communication, and he's Professor John Ed from Northeastern University. It is from his research thesis where I was inspired and I started this entire research. And she is a scholar who has also worked under him, currently a postdoc scholar. And from her research, which is related to biological, we started working. And we have a joint paper yet to be submitted to a journal, and he is my another collaborator, Professor Rajadatta from IIT Kharagpur. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please let me know. There are also a few questions in the chat box.
Ma'am, some
Yeah.
students, some members are actually raised the questions.
Yes,
We will allow to talk with them.
yes.
First, I'm allowing Manikandan sir.
Yes, please.
Hello, Manikandan sir, please, you can raise your question now.
There's a chat, I think.
Dear Manikandan sir. Okay, so I'm enabling Sadish Kumar sir and allow to talk. Sadish Kumar sir, you can ask the question now. Okay, he's also not there. Stalin, sir, I have enabled you. Mr. Stalin, I have enabled you. Okay, so now I am enabling everyone to talk so that you may get the questions.
Yes. Any questions? I think someone has raised the hand.
Yes, for them only I asked the questions. Once
Okay.
again.
So you can leave your questions in the chat also.
Any questions, you can ask the questions. Now I allowed many of them for talk. You can unmute yourself and talk. Or otherwise, you can post the questions also. If you raise the hands also, I will allow you.
Yeah, there's one question. I think Dr. Lekhi, you can answer in the chat. Maybe you can just reply in the chat itself.
You can also, ma'am. You are the panelist.
No, this is not a technical question. It's something in general. So I think that you
Okay,
can
okay, I
answer.
will reply. Certificate will be issued at after the webinar ends after some time. Okay, so there is no questions, I guess.
Yes.
So let's end the webinar. Thank you, Dr. Manjula, for your insightful presentation on in vivo communication through terahertz technology for the heart. Your exploration of how this technology can revolutionize medical diagnostics and treatment has been truly inspiring. We also want to thank all our attendees for joining us today. Your participation and interest in such a cutting-edge topic were greatly appreciated. We hope you found the session both informative and thought-provoking. If you have any further questions or would like to discuss the topic in more detail, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Thank you, Dr. Alekia, for this opportunity. I thank the audience. Audience, if you have any queries, you can reach out to me. In case you are interested to collaborate or have collaboration with our team, you are most welcome. Thank you once again, Dr. Alekia. Yeah. Alekia, we can stop.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.